7:33.
Members present? Beth?
Beth,
Donnie?
Yep.
Todd?
Here.
Andy?
and you.
Okay. We have everybody signed in for the public? Okay. What you need to do is give them an explanation of the proposed amendment, and I'm going to try to get it up here.
Okay. So we're taking the noise regulations on 4A.12 for B1, B1A, B2, B3, B4, I1, and OS1 districts. And we are changing, the first change is under A. Instead of putting the maximum decibel limits, we're putting average decibel limits. And in that same section, the small chart that we have there, again, we're changing maximum sound level to average sound level at property line. We are extending the hours from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. to the new hours will be 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And instead of 8 p.m. to 7 a.m., we're changing it to 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Again, in the note that we have there, we're changing the word maximum to average. And then in the next section, B, under measurement, we are adding the line, the sound level is determined by an average decibel level for the 8 highest 1-hour periods of the day or night as indicated by the above table. And then under the same section, the number 3, we are changing that sentence to end at the 2 words property line and take out lot line of property from which the sound originates.
And the legal notice was placed in Maple Leaf on September 29, 2016. And you can read the recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Okay. It says, we received this today, I believe, right?
Yes, we did.
It says, please be advised that the Geauga County Planning Commission at its regular meeting held on October 11th, 2016, voted to recommend approval of the proposed Auburn Township Amendment ZC 2016-01 indicated on September 8, 2016 by the Zoning Commission with the following suggestions. The township should thoroughly investigate and understand the complexities and challenges associated with noise monitoring and enforcement and the potential costs associated with its implementation. Pursuant to RC Section 519.12, the County Planning Commissioner's recommendation must be considered at the public hearing held by the Zoning Commission on the subject amendment. Subsequent to the hearing, the recommendation must be forwarded to the Board of Township Trustees for review. If the amendment is immediately adopted, copies therefore must be submitted to the county recorder and to the County Planning Commission within 5 working days after its effective date. And that is from Dave Dietrich, our planning director. And we did discuss thoroughly the whether or not we would be able to monitor and or enforce this. So we did take that into consideration in our discussions.
Start with you.
Good.
Don?
Good, baby.
Okay. Comments from the public?
Comments from anybody?
Yes, Diane Jones, resident, and having been at previous meetings where ZC 2014-1 was considered, my recollection of that public hearing was that zoning inspector Kitgo was given authorization to purchase equipment when and if the situation might arise. And in that 2-year interval, and we go to trustee meetings all the time and try to keep abreast, but can anyone here inform me as to whether such equipment has already been purchased by the township? Sound monitoring equipment.
Yeah, I'm not privy to that.
No, they would not purchase it until the time of need. Because of the way equipment is changing today, it would just be sitting here.
It might be a lease situation, a rental.
Okay.
So no,
would it-
nothing's been purchased, to my knowledge.
Yeah, okay, would it involve the employment of an expert, someone with more expertise than the zoning inspector?
I believe it's either more expertise, or yes, you're right, it might be hiring somebody or training our zoning inspector, whoever that is, at the time. I guess it depends on the situation.
Actually, I got several questions. Thomas Jones, the other half of her. You're dealing with average levels now instead of maximum.
Correct.
A definite improvement, 100% for that. How do you measure your average levels? What is the steps involved?
So it'll be a constant recording over time, and then it will be broken down into 1-hour intervals of that. So if the equipment it's going to be somewhat dependent on the equipment and what kind of ability it has to take measurements. So it might be once a second, and could be once every half second. We'll take 1-hour intervals of that, average that, and then average that over the, looking for how that's set up.
Okay, are you doing an arithmetic average, or are you doing an average of the decibels? A decibel average, a dB average, a logarithmic average is what I should be saying.
So it will be coming out in a decibel level.
Yeah. When you average decibels, how do you do that?
When you average decibels, how do you
Yeah.
do that? If you look at it across, I guess I'm not following how you're gonna.
Well, let me give you an example. If you have 2 decibel levels, say they're both 90 at 2 different times, and you add them, how do you do an average if you have 2 measurements of 90?
They're 90 in decibels.
Yeah, they're 90 in decibels each.
So you've converted it to a decibel measurement, so you can add them. You can
But
use them as a
what would
normal
be the average?
of 90 and 90.
Yes.
90.
No. 90 plus 90, and if you're doing decibels, you're doing a logarithmic scale, 90 plus 90 ends up being 93. Your average is 91.5.
So that's why we have
No, well,
That's what we
you're
have.
getting into power levels of the sound that it's coming out at, right? So that's why you convert it to a dBm. You could argue that we're going to convert it to a dBm to go to a power measurement. If you go up by 1.5, you're increasing the power. But if they're both at 90, they're at a common scale. So you can use dB. It's like adding to some kind of gain. So if you're sitting at 90 and 90, that is going to be your output, right? So if you went from 90 to 91.5, you're actually increasing that level. So there's an increase there. That's why you convert it to a common format. So you can.
I think that needs to be looked into. Has anything been taken into account here for ambient noise levels? Like, for example, say during these measurements, the life flight helicopter went over a couple times.
So that's why
we're doing the average of.
And you're saying that'll average itself out.
Yeah, that's why we have in here an average over an 8-hour period of time.
Now, that would be the 8 highest period, 1-hour periods over, say, a 12-hour period that you're monitoring. That's when you have 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. to 12 hours. Okay. The other thing, what are the penalties that are involved in case of a violation?
Isn't that where the sheriff would come in? Isn't that what we,
Comes in just for regular noise.
just for regular noise?
I mean, I guess what's the normal penalty for violating a zoning
And-
infraction?
Right.
Yeah, I guess they get a warning from Frank.
Right.
We don't
It's the same-
set,
same
this board
thing.
doesn't
We
set
don't
penalties.
set any of that. That's not,
Is that our
not
job?
under our
There's nothing,
power.
nothing in zoning about penalties then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Well,
It's not something that we change.
we don't get to determine that. We just determine, you know,
What they need to follow.
what they need to follow, and we don't have any power over how we get them to follow it or what we do if they don't follow it. That's not under our power, as I understand it.
Exactly.
I am intrigued by where this conversation is going. So if there are no stated penalties, the only thing I know about zoning violations is that they sometimes involve a court action and an injunction. So has there been any discussion as to whether any of those penalties might ensue as a result of non-compliance with this new policy should it pass?
We have not discussed that, no,
I
because
believe that it's up to trustees, I believe, as to how they would handle that. I can't.
we haven't discussed penalties amongst ourselves, no.
I've never heard this board discuss penalties for anything.
Well, we don't remember hearing penalties when, you know,
No,
when it came
I
with
don't,
some
I can't
regularity.
answer that.
Yeah, just, it's curious because
It is,
I think some, you know, some legislation may be voidable, and I'm not sure that zoning is considered legislation, but as a result of vagueness or unenforceability, a policy can be removed from the books because it's considered null and void. Don't know how that relates to this one, but,
Well, I suppose you could say that over anything in our book, I mean,
yeah.
you know.
the penalties aren't written down, I don't think, on anything.
It's more of a violation and
Frank might have to be the one that we would ask that of. What he does if someone doesn't follow the rules. We have not discussed any penalties because that's not within our power. If that answers your question.
Well, it's further elucidation, what, you know, I mean, what was discussed earlier, it's just, personally, I'm a little bothered that, as a result, if this passes, I'd like to know what the outcomes are if someone, you know, if someone is in violation. Kind of like to know that ahead of time.
Was it just, you said you were part of the other one where this was originally passed?
Yeah.
Was it discussed there? Because it would have been, in my mind, it's whatever that penalty, we haven't changed.
Actually, there was a great deal of discussion at that public hearing. Practically all of Wayne Road showed up. But I believe it was because that particular amendment seemed to be driven toward a particular business establishment.
well, that
Which-
wasn't us. That was the zoning board of appeals.
No, that was at the public hearing. Yeah, it was packed in here for that hearing, but they were almost all from Wayne Road, and their major concern was the implications of noise from the patio.
Yeah, there was never anything before the BZA about noise because there was never any
There's
action
never been
taken.
any
See, we
action.
didn't change anything with it, there's evidently never been in our book any kind of explanation of what the penalties may or may not be.
It
And we
appears that
didn't-
way,
We didn't
yeah.
address that, we don't address
We
that.
don't put penalties.
That's what I was
Right.
saying, when they
We
originally
haven't
passed this
changed
one,
anything there.
it
We
would have
just,
been the same carryover, there's no, if there, that's what I was saying, if in the past was it discussed,
Right.
it
It's
doesn't
like
sound like
any
it was.
complaint. It goes to the
It goes, right.
the zoning inspector, and then that is handled through that office.
So if there were a complaint and it was handled through zoning and ultimately ended before the BZA, what is the BZA, how are they going to, what do they have to make their judgment on it. There's nothing in the way of penalties or anything else for them to make a decision on.
I don't know if it would go through the ZBA except for if they wanted some kind of
change
they
it.
change or a
Yeah, a
condition. It doesn't
condition.
go for a complaint, I don't believe, in front of the ZBA.
It would be if the party that was involved with the noise were to go for that would be their first step before going to common police court, would be the BZA.
Yeah,
Boy,
an appeals process, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the BZA was just if they want to somehow
that's if they
amend.
wanna get a variance.
Get a variance
Get
or
a
something.
variance or condition, yeah.
Not if they're being penalized, they don't go to
Yeah.
BZA.
You either are approved or you're not approved,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think they
Those are
do
the-
But
anything.
in the case of earlier zoning infractions, I'm thinking they almost invariably, they were courts. They wound it up with being court hearings, whether it would be an injunction or, a disagreement with the zoning inspector. They almost invariably wound up in court. For instance, the case on Taylor May Road, it was a phone operation and it was not zoned. And in fact, some issues with the patio. There've been several of them that didn't, they did want, and there were injunctions that were called for. It didn't necessarily result in that, but
With the
yeah.
patio, though, there's conditional uses.
Right,
Okay, so
Right.
that's not what this is.
yeah, but that one did go to court.
Well, it might have went to
Yeah,
court,
big
but
long
this-
one.
Yeah, I'm sure if Frank goes out there and says, you're violating this, and they don't stop,
They go to
he
court.
goes.
Right.
They
Yeah.
don't go to BZA, they go to
Right.
court, we don't
Right.
set, we don't set the parameters for any of it.
Right, right.
Well, we set these
Okay.
parameters,
Yeah.
I
but
don't think there's maybe there's not truly a penalty, there's just
I don't- there
it's a
is-
move to
It's a-
comply, right?
Yeah.
It's a force to comply as opposed to
Okay, yeah,
you
all right.
pay a fine, you just are forced to
yeah,
comply.
yeah.
And whether or
Okay.
not the city would try to sue for, covered court costs, that would be probably a different thing.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Maybe one, the DB levels that are established in the table, how did those come about?
Honestly, those levels were before my time, so,
Always been there.
Yeah, we did keep the common levels from before. And then, just to make sure we thought the levels, because we did discuss whether or not levels should be changed, we did go through and look at, the government had guidelines around levels, acceptable levels, I forget which website we pulled up, and compared to make sure that we felt these were within justification of where we'd want for a residency. And they pretty much set guidelines for conditions of, what they expect from normal office construction sites, home environment, what are acceptable noise levels. So we felt that the previous ones seemed to fit still today, and we decided that we didn't want to touch that, because obviously the other thing was, this was approved in the past. So we assumed there was agreement already around those, and we weren't trying to challenge the actual level. What we thought was incorrect and needed changing was just that it wasn't a maximum, it was an average, because obviously one sound during that time period would put you over the maximum, and that's,
we were trying not to penalize a business for one incident, only if they were doing it nonstop, and disturbing residents so I think that's where we put the word average in.
yeah, I mean, the
Where
thought
that
was,
came in.
a snowstorm hit and somebody has to come set up a hitch for the first time to get out. You don't want to say, oh, well, you went right over 60, boom, I'm going to call up and complain about that. It was more of, okay, if you're doing that constantly, that would be an annoyance to the, and also, I mean, I think the overall goal was to set it so that both residents were protected and businesses knew it, you know, when they established what guidelines they had to be within, so that it wasn't, hey, all I did was hook up my trailer for the night and all of a sudden I'm getting a call like, hey, you made too much noise.
Mhm.
That's not going to be something that, I mean, that's normal. We want businesses, we want people, but obviously, the best point, we don't want, you're going to be running something all night long creating a noise, and all of a sudden, you know, that's going to be a problem.
Well, the reason I question that is the 55 dB mentioned here, which is, that's the high level for at a property line. And then, the information I got off the web, 54 dB would be a normal conversation level, like we're talking right now. And that doesn't seem like a whole lot of leeway.
And what
especially-
distance is that?
Hmm?
From what distance?
This would be at the property line, the noise level at the
Property line?
Yes, and if we're talking normal conversation here, we're talking at about a 55 dB level.
Okay.
So the 45 dB gets to be more of a problem in the evening. That's a quite a bit lower level than 55. It's not, again, you're dealing with decibels, and every 3 decibels cuts it in half or doubles it.
Yeah, there's loss through the air and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you go and you say, somebody's standing there every night right at the edge of my property line talking, you could start to run into a problem, right? But normally, somebody's working or something's going on, they're not right at the edge, and somebody as well is not adjacently hearing that noise, that would say this is a problem. Yeah, I mean, you're right, again, but we spent time looking at that and decided that it was approved before we weren't challenging that those levels needed to go back and be re-looked at. We looked at them, and again, they were voted on before and accepted, so it didn't seem like a challenge at that point in time. I think one of the things you brought up was, or maybe it was you, I don't remember who said it, but was that in 2 years or so, or how many years this has been, 13, so 3 years, essentially they haven't had a need, but as we review documentation and try to make sure that both residents and businesses are protected, we realized that that probably wasn't the right approach. So again, it wasn't to try to redo this whole thing and say there's a problem or attack a particular area. It was a general, let's try to make this better so that as businesses come in, as residents come in, they know what to expect.
Like I said in the beginning, this is definitely an improvement. My concern is that when you start putting in measurements and you don't specify in here exactly how the measurements are taken and how they're actually combined to give you an average, without that information here, if I were the noisemaker, I would have no way to verify this. If I were the person making a complaint, I have no way to verify this. And if this thing ever went to court, I think the court would throw it out because, again, there's no way that a party who is involved would have a way to know what their culpability in the whole thing is, because they don't have a way of understanding how things are being measured, how things are being calculated with those measurements, and I think that is missing in here. And for the sake of doing a CYA, I think it would be very important to have that in there.
So just to understand your point, are you saying that something along the line, just so I understand, the recording is taken every 1 second, and then that full period is averaged over an hour, and then those averages are then looked at for the 8-hour setting?
Yes,
Is
and
that what you're...
how those averages are actually calculated. And I don't think that an arithmetic mean is exactly how the right way of doing it when you're dealing with decibels, because Well, with that 90 dB thing, I explained that incorrectly. If we had a noise source, 90 dB, and now all of a sudden there was another noise source right next to it, 90 dB, what is the noise? What's the noise level now? It's not 180, because you got 90 plus 90 is 180, it's 93. You've doubled it, and that's 3 dB.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
It's a 3 dB delta if you add
Yeah.
on to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, well, so it's a single measurement taken from something, so we don't have to worry about, you know, certain adding on and that kind of stuff. So, right, the whole idea, you know, I've looked at some of the equipment and been around where it's a single device that they're using to measure, that's recording that along the way, right? So you have a single input coming in, so it's whatever it's recording. It's not worrying about a combined, or it's just going to be whatever that
Is it already
is.
giving you an average as an output, or is it?
Well, it depends on the equipment that's used, or the, but generally, the way I'm familiar with it is that it's a constant, and then they go back and average it. So you're just getting a full, like I said, 1 hertz type of approach, where it's once a second, they're just taking a reading, and then you're averaging that. That's what I'm familiar with. There could be other equipment. We're not equipment experts per se, but I know there are devices that are continuously logging at, like I said, I know one that does it at 1 hertz. I'm sure they have some that do it at 5 or 10 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
It depends how accurate they want to be. It could be even up to 100 hertz for all I know. So, but the whole idea behind it is you're measuring at a point. It's just going to be a single. It's not going to be a whole array of these things that we're trying to figure out, right? We're saying that's why it was changed to the property line kind of thing. Where do you measure? I mean, some of this is left up to the ability to look at where's the noise, where's the property line that they should be measured at. We do have, and it is sound, so it's not something, you know, it is a sound wave, right? So it's not, it's not something you actually see.
And I
So
presume
you're
this
measuring.
equipment is also directional, so it's getting noise from the source you want to measure and not noise from behind it.
No, it doesn't have to be. They don't have to necessarily have it directional.
Because I, as a
So-
property owner, could set up a radio right next to it and
Well, I mean,
skew the results.
there's, I mean, if you're, again, we're supposed to be somebody who knows how to administer the test, setting it up, that kind of stuff. And I guess if there's malicious people involved, that's hard to putting into a zoning, right? I can, you know, lay a driveway, and after I get approval, turn around and lay a bunch more, and unless somebody comes in, you know, it's still a malicious act, right? So, you know, I think the idea is that we're intended that they've already talked to the parties. We formally want to measure what's going on. And again, back to what Beth was talking about, it wasn't the, hey, I went out and I made one loud noise and walked away. It's a constant noise kind of thing. We don't want setting up to residential, a shop running all night long, running some kind of press, banging away. That's going to be a disturbance to the residents. It's not fair to the residents, but we also want to make sure business knows, if you want to do that, you should move into a, not right next to a resident as well, right? We should look at it both ways so that they know how do we operate, what kind of variance would we need if we decide we want to go for that, if we know we're going to run all night long. And I think that's the idea behind this, to look at those conditions.
That's the other thing, now that you bring up variance, if somebody, a manufacturer is looking at something like this, they're going to be thinking of variance or conditional use. Would that be fair to residents if that happens to be next to a residential property?
And that's what the zoning board,
Yeah, that's-
the ZBA.
The ZBA.
And the
That's
resident
not-
can come in.
I mean, that's why we wanted to make it very clear of what we were trying to protect. I think that was that was the idea behind it. We
We're
can't.
trying to protect the resident.
And again, and to make sure businesses know what to operate, so there is no conflict between the residential and business. We want businesses, but we want them to know as well, like, hey, we're expecting you to operate in this kind of manner. I mean, that was part of the justification for the hours, was sometimes in summer and that kind of stuff, there's a lot of daylight to work. We don't want to stop businesses from wanting to work.
I'll tell you, it's a good conversation, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, any more comments?
Anything else? Anybody? Okay, then motion to adjourn the public meeting?
I'll make a motion.
And
Second.
Second, thank you. So 8:04. Do you want me to fill this out, or this was just for my reference? Okay. Now do we do this stuff?
Mhm.
Sorry, just learning. Okay.
The one thing I want to add to the agenda, if we have time, and like to put it up at least towards the top, is we got this last minute thing on agritourism
Uh-huh.
that I gave you a copy of, and we could table it till next meeting.
Okay,
So it's up to you.
okay,
But I want to put it on so it's at least recorded.
okay. Okay. If you guys could quickly read over your minutes from the last time. Okay, anybody have any comments on the minutes?
Was it there?
You weren't here.
Wasn't here. Wasn't here.
Good.
You, Todd, is that okay to you?
Yep.
Looks okay to me.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay. Do you need me to? Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, then, next order of business is the noise. We did that.
Well, the
And
thing
then-
is, you can either go ahead and submit your recommendation of approving this to the trustees, or we have up to 30 days to go over the comments and considerations of the public and
Oh, okay.
recommend it at our next meeting, so that's what you need to decide on.
Okay, so either of you two want to change anything after the comments or make any sort of,
I don't know that I want to change it yet, but do we want to look at all at I think it was valid for a formula hour computing average?
Okay.
We could at least look into it. I can't say for sure that we need to change it after that. There might be a common formula that's used in the industry, and it wouldn't be a big deal. So-
right, that we don't know about?
Or
Okay.
that we could even ask Frank of how is he, intending,
Okay.
right now, what does he look at? If he was doing peak? It's probably worth at least considering.
I agree.
Okay,
So we will need to have this by our next meeting, okay?
Okay.
Well-
We have 30 days to submit this to the trustees.
Okay, so I need to ask Frank how he,
Well, I don't know if he has a normal, I was just gonna, there's a few, I'm gonna take on a call
Can
a
you
few
do the formula?
businesses.
Can you,
Well, I can at least call a few that I know we've used for some of the shop noise and inter-office testing that they've done,
So we can come up with some kind of formula.
Or at least say, hey, do you guys have a standard thing you always use, or
Right,
look on
right,
the
right.
government's website, how they interpret that, so that we can, I think it's worth being prepared with that.
okay, do we,
Now, weren't we supposed to have something on the 18th? Or was this, did I have my dates messed up? Maybe this was our only,
no, this
no,
is-
Okay.
this was,
this is it? Okay, cool.
unless you know something.
No, I didn't.
Any change we do, just so you know, will be a modification to this.
We'd have to have a-
Okay, so we have,
another-
So it would go back,
no, we would modify it, and then, no, it would not go back.
Oh,
It would go
okay.
to the trustees with modification.
oh, okay.
I think it's worth looking at. I mean, I don't know if you want me to look at it and try to get back in a day or two, or...
No, for the next.
Next meeting.
Well, if you could look at it, and if we could,
You
your
can email it
information, you
to
can
us?
just email, no decisions, of course, can be made, but if you would just email anything for people to consider, other people can look at other ways also.
Yeah.
Would
And
you
then
like
we
me
would
to
commit.
contact Frank?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you see what you find out about the calculation, and I will contact Frank. Okay?
And then we can see what else we can come up with for the next meeting, and that should give us enough time.
Our next meeting is
That should give us enough time.
27th?
And for our, hopefully, November 10th meeting. That's 30 days.
I'm looking at the... When do the trustees
The
have to get...
28th day would be November 10th. Okay, so we could discuss and do things on our meeting on the 27th,
Okay.
and then on the 10th, that
It
would
would
still
go to
give
the
us
trustees.
time, and then we could make a motion to do that. And we can deny it, we don't have to go through it.
Right.
We can deny or we modify, okay? So that gives us a whole
Can we do
month.
that at our next meeting?
Yes.
We can finalize it next meeting,
We
and then it
can
goes to the...
finalize it, or we can finalize it even on the 10th,
Okay,
okay?
and that goes to...
And then I would take it right to the trustees. 'Cause it has
And then
to
they
go
just
back.
bring it up in their next meeting?
They have to have a public hearing also.
Oh, then they have a special hearing just for that, as opposed to their normal... Okay.
Where's that paper you had your stuff on?
Right, he has it.
I'll try to make sure that, well, I'll have it.
Okay, so you'll do that, and I will speak with Frank.
And I will put something out to the rest of the members, just for them to do some homework and research on it also then.
Yeah, Albert would be a good guy.
Mhm.
Okay.
Noise coming back.
Again, that's what I thought might come.
Okay. Is that good then? Okay. Then the next thing is the planning workshop that Dee handed out the things for. I have signed up already, and Albert signed up already. We're putting our initials next to the classes that we signed up for, so that maybe we can all hit maybe a little different things, if you're able to attend.
Yeah, I think I'm at this point in time gonna be hard pressed to attend.
Hi,
Don't mind me.
Okay.
Just
no biggie.
busy at work.
Yeah, it's a work day, so yeah, we get it. You have a
So,
job.
I don't know either.
You have a job, that, we get it, no problem.
Carry on.
Bye.
I like to, I think it's pretty nice. Do they have these yearly? That's what I...
Yes, they do,
Okay.
they do.
That's good.
Okay, and then the next item, revised draft for the land use, approved by Dave Dietrich and trustees with one revision.
Yes, that was sent to them on October the 3rd. And Dave is already, I got a email from Karen from the Planning Commission that she hopes to send out the final copy, which is done, tomorrow.
Okay,
So we'll have a CD, and I asked for one hard copy.
okay,
Okay.
so we're done
We're
with our
done with
part of that.
Yeah, and that did take us a while to get done.
Yes, it did.
It was, the Planning Commission is definitely on a shoestring as far as help, and we were lucky that they did what they did for us, especially when we asked them for the revisions. We didn't get the information that we would have liked to have had, like we had in our last land use
Yeah.
plan, but it just took too much time for them. So-
Overall.
We did?
But they did a wonderful job. It's really nice.
Okay.
Were you sleeping?
The next item is the medical marijuana. We all received from the county prosecutor this long memorandum about the medical marijuana thing that's coming up. And I did a little research on, as far as what's going on around the rest of the county. And several people commented that they're thinking that it's going to be like the adult business type things, the sex trade businesses, I guess you would call them, that they're going to pursue it along that way, but a great deal of people are doing kind of the wait and see how the state is going to make rules around it and how, exactly what's going to happen with it, because right now it seems to be in a big stall pattern. So I think that from what I got from the people that I discussed it with, everybody's kind of taking a wait and see attitude on it. They don't want to jump right in and put all kinds of stuff out there and just to have to turn around and change it all if the state decides to get more particular about it. I spoke to Dave Dietrich about it, and he sent me a website that lists what all the state is got to say on it, and I forwarded that email tonight to you guys all if you want it. It's a lengthy website with lots of PDFs and everything if you want to. But as far as us taking the time to start setting rules down about it, it's not really recommended at this point because of it being so up in the air. So, unless you guys have other thoughts.
No.
No? Okay. Good.
And I'm going to bring up the agritourism now too. You should have a copy of his letter dated September 21st also. And it's probably we need to have a definition in our zoning resolution so we can look this over and work on this. Being that we're on a short staff, I suggest we table that until the next meeting,
Okay.
unless you want to go over it now.
Well, maybe we can just kind of do a little research on it between now and next time. If you guys have a chance, try and do a little Google it.
I was just gonna ask, does anybody, just general knowledge, I can't say I know much about agritourism, but essentially, it looks like they say you can regulate structures and that kind of stuff. Do we know of things that people have done that we should be considering? I mean, I can look it up, I guess,
The only
but
thing I know that goes on in this county is the maple business. They do maple
Well,
tours.
agritourism, if Cernis, what they did the last couple weekends, that was agritourism.
Oh, where they have like a fall festival kind of
Exactly.
thing?
Okay.
Howard's Apples, they have their corn maze, whatever.
So
that's
all that kind of
agritourism.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
so, is anybody aware of instances where, and again, maybe I can try to just look it up, but where you'd want to heavily regulate what it is? Because, I mean, they're talking about structures of use, if people are putting up temporary structures or creating problems. I mean, this thing could seem to snowball, and I'm just trying to understand if,
I suppose it might be like if the people across from Howard's Apples got mad because on the weekends there was like a line of cars trying to get into Howard's Apples, and they set up like bouncy houses and Ferris wheels and all that to go along with their,
Roller coaster.
Mostly agritourism is some type of farm anyhow. There's usually, I mean, I'm thinking in our area, I don't know where agritourism could cause a problem with traffic. I mean, if it was a big,
well, I suppose it depends on how big it was allowed to be,
exactly.
you know?
So I guess that, from our side, you know, in general terms, thinking of if people put up temporary structures that we would say, wow, you know, that really wasn't intended, and the second would be probably more around the, we don't want something to create a traffic issue. Right. I'm just trying to get a bearing on what we need to consider. What are the pitfalls of agritourism? Normally,
That's why
we'd
I
say
was gonna look it up, just so
more,
we
more,
can-
more on my lines. It's usually a good thing for a community. So I was
Right.
trying to think what are the negative things that you would want to make sure you're zoned for to protect,
Right.
which is
And it's nice that they are actually recognizing agritourism now because insurance was out the wazoo as far as agritourism years ago. And now it's giving you a little bit of a break because they are recognizing it, accepting it, and I know with our insurance company, it's been a big break.
cool.
Okay. Well, if we could just do a little research on that between now and our next meeting, then we can kind of find out what we all were able to discover on that. Okay. Next, did you, we're good? Next one is the business district maps. We got new maps, or?
Well, it was,
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, Todd was
Let me try to make this.
making a fancy map for us.
So I think it came out. It doesn't scale very well on here, but essentially what this is, you know,
you want
I
the,
don't know. I'm going to turn the lights out, otherwise we're not going to be able to see anything.
well, that's much better.
So what we're looking at here is everything that we have zoned today, broken down on a map. I can quickly add in parcel lines. If you zoom in, you start to see them. The blue pins end up being the list that you provided, Dee.
Okay?
Those are all the locations of the businesses. There was about 6 businesses in that list that we couldn't essentially locate.
Okay.
They just didn't map well, and I'm sure I could figure out where they are, but, you know, I figured this gave us a pretty good picture of where things are. Those are all our zones. The other thing that was set up was, if we need to, there's the property class. Essentially, so what does the county consider the property for tax purposes? So this is our actual zoning breakdown of where we identified the zones. And then I added in here where now we can have a property. So like 100 is agriculture, 500 is residential, and you can see there's 2,687 lots broken out that way. They're in the 500 to 600 range. So as a example of, let me just show this real quick. This is all the property classes, so you can see.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I
the
said.
auditor goes on.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is, so just to make it easy, all this under 500 got grouped as residential. And just broke it down by hundreds. I did talk to the county GIS, and they created a map, and they originally said, yeah, you're probably best in just breaking it down by groupings, because to label all these could get pretty extensive. I looked in our Auburn Township, we have we use 117 of this list.
Wow.
So it's sort of all over the map, and I wasn't going to get that involved. I didn't think it added much benefit. But now, if we want to zoom into an area on here, there's different legends on. I'm going to turn a few things off just to make this a little clearer. but we can come in and press on a property, get the details of it, get the
Oh,
property
that's
class.
Sweet.
This is where the business would be located.
And it tells you which one it is.
Yeah,
and-
so as we start to look at this, and again, it translates a little better on my screen than this projector, but we can start to look at if we want to consider changing any of the zoning areas. We now can break it down pretty easily and look at different areas. And again, if we don't want to look at it as far as our zones, but just what the property class is, we can turn that on instead. And again, you can see colors like these are all listed as 500s.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that's really where we're at. If we want to look at a particular area, we can zoom in and out. And I did talk, and they said if there's certain maps we want to create, like specialized maps, they'd be willing to create us a map, like a hard copy. I think let's see, I'll show you the map that they intend. Let me open this. This is, so if we wanted like hard maps
Mm-hmm.
to pass out as opposed to, you know, a
Looking at
computer,
the projector.
we can ask them to create this, and again, this is where they came up with some of the property classes breakdown, and I just used those. So again, this, I think we now have more of an interactive approach that we can, if we want to look at a particular area like the corners, we can zoom in and out, see which parcels are really broken down,
Okay.
and what were affected. So.
Great,
and the
Todd,
different
that's
zones.
wonderful.
Wow, thanks. That's
It's
really
gonna be a
cool.
really good tool when we zoom in.
Yeah. So.
Wow, that's really cool.
These sort of overlay, and again, this projector is not very widescreen, so we can only go so far, but I think it lays out pretty well.
So we can see where the concentration of businesses are
Yeah,
actually,
you definitely can pick up where the businesses are,
Right.
and whether or not they're following the right business pattern.
and whether they're using the correct, whether or not the zoning is actually working.
Yes. And it looks like pretty much over here, we've done pretty good. There's other ones scattered throughout, but.
Yeah, that's our industry.
Yeah, they, you know, they're not offset, they're on the street line, so actually, you know, the business reality is back behind, so it's just mapped to the front of the street.
What are the ones that are kind of off in the?
Like here?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't.
That's a
that's
development,
no,
right?
no.
Oh, that's out of business now,
Yeah, that's
right?
out of business.
That was the
So
one.
this is,
That was the one.
it's everything that was on your
Oh.
list.
Yeah, and that, I
Yeah.
know.
So
and
I
that's- and I'm sure
can't
there's
validate
more-
the,
yeah. That list is 2 years old, at
Okay.
least.
yeah. So I did ask, and the county commissioners do not have a list of Auburn businesses. So I specifically asked, can I get a list of all the businesses? And they said, we do not have a list of all the businesses in the county, so, or in our
No
township,
one does.
in our township. So
This was.
that's why we went to
Why don't
the,
they have that on the text?
Yeah, if they have to file for a business
They
license,
use
why
the-
couldn't they just use that?
they used the property class. So based on the property class is how they tax them.
Wow. Okay.
I can't speak to it,
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what I learned, so, but that's essentially what it is.
Okay.
So, yeah, so, you know, I think we have pretty good information we can break down pretty easily to look at this stuff if we like.
Can you get a listing of the businesses under those property classes? Like, can you compile a list from those, or no?
So you want to know, like, like, for instance, this one is, what property class does it fall under?
Among all the other ones? Like, can you get a whole list of all of that property class?
Oh, all the, it gives me I can get the parcel, I can't get the business that goes with it.
Okay.
So like I can come in here and we can look and say, this parcel, what it's tied to.
Wow.
But we're not able to get if there's a business on there. That's what I was asking for.
Oh,
So in our
okay.
industry, like if we wanted to know what was, how they were classified for our industry area, could you get a breakdown of how many are classified in each of those categories?
Yeah, so there are, I could do it better than this, but in property class 100, there's 371. In the parcel breakdown, in the zoning breakdown, I could get the same kind of thing, like how many parcels break into B1 or...
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
that would be
Because-
helpful.
Yes,
I can do that. And
okay.
so this is what you want, like, how many parcels are B1s, right? That's what you want to know?
No, I want to know the businesses, where you have their classification from the auditor's office.
So I have parcel classifications.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's, in the 100s, there's 371 parcels.
Can you tell me, is that all in the industry area? Can you give me a breakdown
So I can
of
show
where those
you,
were?
I can show you this. If I do this, the ones highlighted in this blue are where all those lie. So 100 is
Oh.
all those.
Okay.
So
okay.
and I can turn on parcels if, you know, if I zoom in. And then if we want to look at all the 300s, there's 300s. If we want to look at 400s, that's 400s. 500s turn on, and 600s, and then no parcel class was the 840s or something like that, which is railroad, from what I remember.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The reason we were doing this, just so you guys know, is we were trying to see if the businesses are actually using business districts. That's why we thought we would try and figure out where everybody is ending up.
At our property at Auburn Corners is our B3 and B4 district going down to the freeway. There's been no businesses to speak of in the past, how many years since we zoned that. We're trying to see what possibly we could change down there to bring businesses in. To find out why they're not coming. Is it zoned wrong? Are the uses wrong? To make it more viable. That's what we're trying to do. And then by checking out all of what's being done in the other areas, we can kind of see why are they there if they should be down here, what our zoning is. So we're trying to get a whole recap of our whole business areas. We have a lot of business property. We have a lot of
Sitting,
business property.
doing nothing. So we were just trying to figure it out.
This is the industrial and commercial, just for tax purposes. So the 300s and 400s are pretty much, it gets a little, I can
Yeah, it's all over by
I
the,
can turn off some of the stuff. I just can't see it very well.
yeah. It's those shaded areas by the industry, right?
I can go to a flat map, but over here there are some, so you can.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, so 400 are primarily considered industrial and commercial. 500s go into residential, and then the 100s are agriculture.
So pretty much there's a lot going down Washington Street that's industrial.
Yeah, sometimes when you turn it on off. The other thing is I
Then
can
you, then you
remove
can see
these.
it blinking.
Yeah, I can remove those pins to sort of clear up that, and then right there.
Oh, I see, okay.
So, and again, we can make still maps if we want to. The county can do that. I can print things out too. So once, we just have to decide what we want. So I didn't know, is this what you wanted, Dee, the count of each one? Of 100 of these or 55, or am I still missing?
Weren't we
one?
just trying to figure out
I
the
guess
types?
I guess I wanted to know in the B3, what is, let's say, the 107 classification? How many are in the B3, how many are in the industrial, how many are? I wanted to know
Okay.
that also. I wanted to get an idea of those classifications, how many are in each business district?
Okay.
Because that's the tool we can use as a, we've
can
got
do that.
all of those, is that to our zoning specifications? Okay, we have more in the industry where it should have been down to the B3.
Yep.
It's trying to give us a listing of what's going in Auburn and where it's going,
Got it.
and that's what I think we need as a tool.
We can do that. Right now, visually you can see it, but I don't have a number, which I can get. How many classifications are in B1 you want to know? And what are they?
Yes, and then how many of that
So we'll-
classification is, I want you to take
What I'll
this-
do is I'll take this data and then I'll put it inside of each zone. So when you turn on, instead of, so this OS 1 or something like that, when you turn this on, underneath that, it will break it down by this,
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yes.
so that you can
That's
see,
Mhm.
and if it doesn't have anything in there, it'll be 0.
Okay.
But that will give
Okay.
us, so these will, each one of these will have this list
Those
underneath.
categories
Right.
under it.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
you want to see.
That's what I
Yeah.
want to see. That's a big thing for us to
Yeah,
see,
no,
because then we
understand.
can kind of see what district has what,
And how they're classified.
exactly.
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you so much, Todd, this is
That's
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, and I can send this, Google Maps or Google Earth Pro is, I don't know, Pro, but Google Earth is now, it's free. So I can send this file and you guys can look at it at your own computers. You might have to download Google Earth,
Mhm.
but you can look at it yourself. So I don't have to be the retainer, I'll send it out.
Okay,
I'll make that correction and I'll send it out, and if you want to just play around, I mean, there's a lot of tutorials or YouTube videos to get familiar with it, but it's really easy once you open the file and essentially you turn things on and off. And zoom
Okay.
in, zoom out. So I'll send that around so everybody has a copy of it, so it's, you know.
thank you for doing all this work, that's really
Yeah, I think
great.
it's going to
I
be.
got lucky, and
Yeah.
somebody did it for me.
Oh, well, it's really helpful.
Well, you can
He's an
run it very
expert.
well.
You should have taken the credit for it, it's really good.
I can't.
I'm patting you on the back,
I
just
know.
take the credit.
At least you can say I was part of helping the process get there, right? So-
Well, you know what, you're sitting behind that computer, that looks pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, a guy that, yeah, he did he actually did the work, so.
I think we're going to get a
I
lot
just
of use
asked
out of
for
that in other aspects too. Once we
Yeah.
get this part done, then we can move to other parts with this. I think it's going to be a very helpful tool, very
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you so much, Todd.
No problem.
Thank you very
Any
much.
questions on the maps?
I got a question.
Sure.
How do I get a copy of that?
That goes through there, I don't know. Actually, you know what the truth is? There is nothing that we've done here that is private, or
That isn't
not
public information. Yeah.
So we went to the county clerk
I went to the county website
and just pulled the data from there, and
You should
like
be
I
able to get
said,
it from the planning commission.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can request of them to create you maps. I don't know if they'll give you KMZ, a Google type of map. I know they'll give you flat maps. But yeah, we essentially went to the website, pulled down the information,
Cool.
obviously spent time sorting it and cleaning it up for what we wanted.
Mhm.
But it is all public available,
Cool.
so there's nothing, so yeah, somebody said send it out. It's probably gotta go through the county to approve.
Thank you very much for doing that. That's really, really going to be helpful as we look at what we need to fix, if anything. Okay, the next one is review of the following.
Yeah, and the zoning business districts, that's what.
That's what he was
basically
just going
did, and
over.
that's what we'll discuss, that will be what we'll be reviewing.
Mhm.
Okay. And from that, that'll tell us, you know,
Mhm.
different things, what we need to do or need to look at,
Okay,
which is all of the next two.
okay. Yeah, reducing the business to residential within the business, each district. Okay. Also along those lines, I did do a little research for us. I made some phone calls and did a little.
Sorry.
You want this back?
Yeah.
The projector?
I don't think we'll need it, do we?
Okay.
Anyway, I did a little research into, we had talked about what is the possibility of increasing the residential minimum lot sizes. And as we know from the survey that we did, people are pretty happy with the residential lot sizes. And in the phone calls that I make, that was also the case. People are happy with the current lot sizes, and if we were going to address something like changing lot sizes, the thing that was said to me over and over and over is what would be the justification for increasing, like we talked about going to 3 to 5 acre minimums. And what would be the justification for that? You can no longer say that it's septic, because now with the septics the way they are, you know, one septic system can run 5 houses. And the worry would be that if you have a 5-acre lot and somebody says, okay, I've got the minimum, the 5-acre lot, I'm gonna put up 4 houses on it, because I can run them all off of one septic system. So that was said to me over and over and over. That would be a worry, that if we were to increase the minimum lot size, what would stop people from just willy-nilly putting up extra houses, because it can all be run off of, you know, I was told that the way the state is doing it now, these newer septic systems can run a ridiculous amount of stuff through them. So, in other words, we can't just change stuff because we want to. We have to have a justification for it.
So, help me out, because I was thinking about this. Why do we have a 2 and 3 and a 3, and why we talk 3 and 5? Why not just talk minimum lot size as one single number? Why is there 2 numbers?
It was because of the soil.
Conservation.
Originally, yeah.
Because of the soil.
But why-
That's
why 2
determined
and 3?
3-acre zoning and 2-acre zoning. The soil is different in the 2-acre zoning as it is in the 3-acre zoning.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
if
that
you
was-
look at those maps that were in the land use,
That was
Right.
all on our soils, is how they determined the 3 acres and the 2 acres at that time.
Okay.
And we increased way back when.
The 2-acre side lots or 3?
Yeah, we even had 1-acre zoning. I mean, there was no, you know, so I mean, the 2 to 3 acres was a good thing to do way back then. And I think if you try to change that, you're opening a can of
Yeah,
worms.
it's still good, 2 to 3
I
is still
just
good.
need to, I mean, everybody's happy according to the survey.
yeah, and all the people that I spoke to also are not looking to change that, because they, you know, there just isn't a justification for it. There just isn't, you know, with the way septic systems are and the soil being the way, there just isn't justification for changing it.
One question when, that the comment about with the septic systems, if you had a 5-acre, you could put 4 houses. So, but the argument there, I'd say, is I could put 2 houses on or even 3 houses on a 2-acre lot.
If your septic could handle that.
Right, but I mean, the septic systems, if they're getting smaller and better, I assume.
And the
if I look at-
setbacks, with the house size and the setbacks.
Be difficult.
Well, it'd be hard to
It'd
get
be hard to do.
4, I mean,
Yeah.
if you can get 4 on 5, you can probably get
Well,
2
yeah, I
on
don't know if
3.
you get 4 and 5.
Yeah.
I don't know if you get 3 and 5,
Yeah.
you know?
I was just trying to understand
Yeah, no, I don't-
that, I don't know if that people really could.
I suppose you'd have somebody that would try, I guess, if they were mad at us about changing the zoning.
And
But-
I'm sure that in the future, it probably is going to take place with developers. They're going to test our zoning.
Isn't there a rule in zoning somewhere that one residence per lot?
So how could you?
So how could they put more than one on a lot?
Figure if you had development property, if you had a lot of acreage.
Like the,
Cluster housing,
I'm thinking of the golf course down here when you mentioned that.
yeah.
Any large lot, any large lot.
I think part of justification, we talked about land use, but we also have to talk about reality of our land use, and also potentially the usage in the building of the land will change over time. Golf course is one. Farms are consolidating or being eliminated.
Or being conserved.
Right. So as that comes, housing will potentially increase. And we have to look at the land use at that point in time. If you look at, so one of the things I noticed was there are a lot of agricultural set, and I don't even know where a golf course would fall under that, I didn't look it up, but parcels and a lot of land. Well, it's the property class tied to the tied to the parcel is, there was 371 of those, which if I looked at the map, there's actually quite a few. Those start to be eliminated, and you have, you could argue that we could look at a study if everything went to either a commercial property or a residential property, do we still have the right sizing of our land for the conservation for our water system, soils? That would be the only thing I would say, is if farms start changing, if golf courses start shutting down where we have these large land masses, and those start just going into development, which is what you see in a lot of neighboring areas, how do we have the right sizing for that?
I'll put it this way, is...
Well, I'm not saying we don't, I'm just asking the question. That would be...
I'll tell you that probably one of the scenarios that I see at that, if we try to increase the acreage on those larger parcels, because of that, you're gonna have everybody, before that amendment goes in, they're going to survey and have the smaller lots. That's what they did when we changed our zoning back in the 70s. The people split their lots so that their frontage, because we had certain frontage that you had to have, so people were dividing their lots, so they had the old frontage. So that's how we got a lot of lots grandfathered in, okay?
Putting the septic aside, isn't the infrastructure taken into consideration? I mean, the roads are crumbling, right?
Yeah.
So you shut down a golf course, you put in 30, 40 houses, there's no improvements done to the roads before putting in the development. I mean...
Well, there's no roads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the roads aren't put in properly, and who's stuck with the bill? For example, Ascot Lane.
Yep.
So, I mean, you could talk about septic all you want, but I mean, I think the infrastructure should be looked at before anything. And I understand your point with increasing the lot size, but you increase the lot size, you're decreasing the traffic flow. I'm not sure I understand the 5-acre, 4 houses ordeal. It's my understanding that you buy one lot, you put one house on it.
I think she was just, I mean, I think,
It was just an example that was given to me by one of the people that I was saying, well, what do you think of if we change this, if we go from the 1.5 to 3 and we change it to a 3 to 5, what do you think of this? And that's what one of the examples
I
I
didn't
was
think you
told.
could do that, though. You can put
I don't
multiple
know.
houses on a single lot, because isn't that the whole idea? If you have a 5-acre lot, you put one house on that 5-acre lot. You're limited to that's your lot, that's your house.
and I
Or is
don't
that
think
not the case?
it's for a lot. I think it's for the future development of lots, like for that's what I think.
Correct, but you're saying that some might be grandfathered in, but that forward would preclude anybody else from having that. So, yes, developers, people would say, I'm gonna split my lots, I'm gonna have the smaller lot sizes so I can sell them out. But anybody developing from that point forward, farms go down, they wanna cut it up, now you're cutting it up into 5-acre lots instead of 2 or 3-acre lots now. So, I mean, it's, yes, they might grandfather in previously, but anything that forward will be.
And one thing too, I would like to clarify too, the things that we are discussing have been brought to us to look at. So when something is given to us to look at, we try to
See all sides.
get all the outside and research everything we can.
Yeah, that's why I make a bunch of phone calls and I figure out, what other people in other townships have done in the county and that type. I try and research it as much as we can, so we're just not arbitrarily, well, let's do this,
So I think there's, you bring up, do we know what the adjacent townships, counties are set at? Are we,
Yes, we actually,
because I know Mike before has brought up Bainbridge is 3 and 5 or something like that. I
Right.
don't know if it's true or false, I don't, but I know, that one sticks out because I remember him saying that.
We do have the 1.5 to 2 is
Actually, all
one of
the
the
townships,
smaller
all the
ones.
townships in Jaga County are 3 to 5 acres, except for Munson is 2.5 to 5 acres, and Chesterland, I believe, is 1.5, 3, and 5 acres.
Yeah, we have one of the, the fact that we have, a couple of areas where we do have the 1.5s, we're one of the smaller ones, those areas.
Our acreage is one of the smaller ones, but it's been that since the 70s.
I think the point
Well, I
that
think-
people were trying to make to me is we can't just change lot size because we want to. We're gonna be opening ourselves up for a hornet's nest.
Yeah, no, I think the other thing is, remember when we talked about this too, was in conjunction if we change some of the potential zoning to open up, allowing certain areas. Again, we looked at the map, where businesses aren't always where the businesses are.
Right.
If the
Right.
ZBA is going to keep just allowing that, we're sort of just, we could change things. So if we have different areas that open up, when they open up, do you want them opening up as 2 and 3 or 3 and 5? That, I think it has to be talked about as
Well,
a
and I
total.
think that's
How do
what
you
we-
want traffic flow? I think that's a
Yeah,
valid thing.
we would assign then, if we were to change some of that, to residential, then we would discuss what type of, whether we want it in the 3 to 5 or in the R2, which is the 2-acre thing. But, okay, now that just went right out of my head. Darn it. Oh, another point that was brought up is about, if you look at the survey, the township survey, the population of the township is aging. And that was another point that was brought up by several people that I spoke to. If we increase the minimum square footage of a house, if we increase the minimum lot size, we're basically shutting out a lot of people, because we're already one of the most expensive townships in the county. And it was mentioned several times that if you're a senior, that
No place to go.
there's no place to go. You're having to leave the township if you,
But they're doing that at current anyway, right? I mean, if the discussion is that they're needing to leave, it's not a function of our lot size and minimum requirement that we have right now on the house.
we're just
There-
saying if we up the minimums, then we're making it even tougher.
And I understand, I mean, this is the, but I'm saying if they're already saying it's tough and we need to leave as we get older, it was, even at today's, that would mean they want it smaller, which we already agree isn't what we want to do.
No,
I think the other thing is we have to realize if we look at a lot of that land use and feedback, we've also established a higher end type of as well. Our average home price, that kind of stuff, our average income is not at the lower end as well. So while I understand that, there are, we do have which I assume isn't older community not having somewhere to go. It's new influx that is bringing in the higher home prices and that kind of stuff. Which means we might be in a transitional period of our community somewhat. Good or bad, it just sort of happens, right? There's people who've been here a long time, things are transitioning. You guys have been here longer than I, so I assume farms have been sold off. The golf course I've heard is as well. Things are changing, and so how do we protect the community? Because one of the biggest things I read out of our survey was they liked the rural feel that we have. We don't want to get to a heavy population. People didn't want to change that type of approach, right? They liked how it is now, and they want to maintain that. And we have to think as those things start to shift, and it's happening, right? Whether or not we like it, how do we protect that as well? How do we protect the land? How do we protect the overall, what people feel, the amount of traffic flow that comes through? One way is through the zoning of how you set it up, that what you can allow. I think that's, I mean, there's pros and cons. It's not without,
Right, but does that mean we need to increase the minimums? Or are we fine the way we are? I mean, overwhelmingly, if you look at the survey, people were happy with the way it is, not increasing it and not decreasing it.
I
They're
don't think
happy with the
people
way
want
it
more
is.
acreage. It doesn't seem like people, they're pretty well set on their 2 to 3 acres.
But anybody who
That's
has
not
it has
affecting anybody that's
Yeah.
already here. This is only affecting people that are coming in.
Mhm.
So if you're in your own
Future
home,
growth.
yeah, what does it matter to anybody who already has an existing home that you're gonna up the people coming in to have to maybe 3 to 5 acres, which is gonna increase property size, it's gonna less homes, larger probably value of the home, and then as far as keeping it a little more rural, you're not gonna have home after home after home. You're not gonna have smaller lots, you'll have larger lots, but it's not gonna affect the population that's here. I don't think it's gonna affect people that are aging, because if you can't afford or can't exist in what you are, you're not gonna move to another home. So I don't see a disadvantage to having the larger acreage for the people that are already living here. I mean, I don't, unless there's something that I'm missing, and I understand you have to have a reasoning behind it, but, you know, same thing, if you're losing all of these large parcels, you have a water source you have to get from, you have home after home after home, it's probably not gonna help it. So,
Well, then I lost my train of thought. And I lost my,
we're going after the big ones, right? They're not easy.
they're not, no, and, you
There's a
know,
lot of points, and I think that's
No, I
the key
just,
around those.
in the phone calls that I made and the people that I spoke to, because I asked them, were they in favor of us looking at the minimums, square footage and lot size? And overwhelmingly, I got no from the people I spoke to. I also asked about the corners and all the business property that's sitting down there and has been sitting down there for 20 years and nobody's touching it. You know, what do you think? Should we put some of it to residential? Should we put some of it to a mixed use kind of thing? You know, there's stuff going in the industrial area that should be in the business area. However, there's no building in the business area. So people are taking the industrial area because they can, because there's a building sitting there. And there's no building sitting over there for people to move into. So we don't want to not let them go into the industrial because then we lose them all together. But yet we haven't been able to draw anybody over
To that
here.
area.
Isn't part of the problem at the corners, though, the part of it is the drainage issue and the inability, there's only so much coverage that you're allowed down there. I think you can't get in excess of 30% coverage.
Water's a problem. Water's a big problem.
Yeah, yeah, so,
Water.
There's no water?
No,
Wells.
no, you know, just wells, no
Wells.
public
Yeah.
water.
Like for a business,
Yeah.
the way it's.
But the
Didn't
thing that
use
was,
any.
that brought up to me that was the biggest problem down there is ODOT. ODOT keeps squashing driveways
true.
that businesses
Yeah.
want
the
and,
potential gas station.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
There's not, you know, that's ODOT, but we're not gonna be able to do anything about it.
I think ODOT ought to buy the land.
Don't you wish? And the thing, you know, if we were to, two of the people I spoke to said if we were to change anything like that, maybe not really change the zoning, but add a mixed use kind of thing to the zoning, so that if somebody wanted to put up a senior facility or a condo thing or a business with a residence over it, or, you know, adding that as opposed to taking away the business.
The residential.
I don't know, we mapped this out. It was how many acres in that
It's
area?
147 acres in the B4 and 82 acres in the B3 that are just sitting there.
Yeah, I mean, we're never going to get something to fill all that. I still don't think that we should count on that growing so large, I mean, if it hasn't changed. And I think, again, when we talk this, people might want a small store and a gas station or something. They don't want a big,
No, they don't.
so keeping it as a business and then moving into mixed might be confusing. I think, back especially by the reservoir, it'd be nice that's just wasted land that could be homes that would protect that area as well, that we don't have runoff into.
Mhm.
I think there are areas that we could clean that up.
Yeah, I
And really
agree.
make an improvement, and then maybe that would entice, by having a few more communities around there, would entice people
To have a gas station.
or a store or something,
Right, right.
so.
You know, over the years, the two of us have had this discussion often, and we are tempted, I mean, it always comes back to, it would be a perfect location for a Chautauqua kind of educational experience if you could maintain that year-round and, you know, that it wasn't just seasonal. But our conclusion is that those particular parcels, because of the limited coverage, it's too expensive a venture to invest in that property and then be limited to what kind of footprint you could put in there. And again, there are practical reasons for that.
Actually, one of those practical reasons has been taken care of. They're on a sewer system now.
There are sewer systems
so,
down
Right,
there.
but we
Yeah.
still haven't been able to draw anybody. So is it something about our zoning? That's what we're trying to figure out. I mean, why aren't we able to draw a gas station or, you
A
know,
restaurant.
a restaurant, something?
Well, you have people who can't afford the sewer assessments.
Well, I've sat on in several of the BZA meetings, and what's come out of those, at least it's come to my attention through those meetings, is that anybody who wants to build down there or develop down there has a problem with the amount of lot coverage. And the lot coverage is limited by our zoning, and they can't put driveways in, they can't put parking in.
Okay.
The building size, the footprint is small, and with the sewers, I don't see where that really is an issue, because they don't have a septic system on that land.
The lots are small too.
But the lots are
The
small.
lots are small,
They're
so they
really
have
small.
to put anything in, they have to use a lot of that lot surface area.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone should look at,
But we can't really do anything about the lot size, right?
no, not the lot size, but the coverage.
But the coverage of it.
Because they're
we could-
small lots.
We could look at the
And on one
coverage.
side, they're all bowling alleys that are 150
Okay.
feet wide.
But a lot of the desertion that we have all witnessed, you know, a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot.
That's in the past.
That is
really.
in the
That's
past.
way in the
but
past,
yeah,
20
it's
years
true.
ago.
It's true, but a lot of those properties, owners have just walked away from.
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
continue to be vacant and subject to foreclosures, and eventually someone owns it, but,
But
you
they're
know,
not developing.
they're not developing it.
Right, that's why we were discussing, do we turn them back to resident, because that beautiful lake is right there.
Yeah,
Would it be nice to have that residential? I mean, would it,
yeah.
you know?
I mean, it would lend itself perfectly to a learning institute, an educational environment.
You're
You
doing
know,
that, something like that, you're talking motel or hotel developing
Yeah,
down there. I don't know if that's in our
and-
zoning.
And those were verboten also, yeah, yeah.
Well, we can look at the lot coverage of the area, even if we don't change the zoning, we could look at the lot coverage easily.
Yeah, that gentleman down here, I can't remember his name, Diane, that
no.
does the glass blowing,
Oh, Jason Wine.
Jason Wine.
Yeah.
He wanted to expand down there, and he's limited because he can't put anything bigger than a postage stamp on his lot.
Okay, that's our B2 village.
Oh, okay.
I think that, and that's one thing I think we need to really look into and alleviate.
Okay. Well, that's
Because
something
the thought
workable,
of
that's
that
something
back in
we
the
could,
day- back in the days of that zoning was to have this cute little area with sidewalks and that, and when you
It's
visualize the
not
trucks
happening.
going down.
Yeah.
You can't do that with goes back to the roads.
right.
You don't have the proper roads.
Semis barreling through there, nobody's gonna be walking around.
No, we need to make that a little easier.
Well, that's something easily addressed, if we
Well,
look
I
at
don't think
the,
it's easy.
well, not easy,
Yeah,
but I mean,
yeah.
that's, you know,
Yep.
something we can address rather
It looks like there's half acres,
No, it's so small.
eighth of an acre, or 2/10 of an acre, 3/10 of an acre.
And even like the pizza place, Cerna's, before it was Cerna's, they had to get a variance
Yeah.
to make part of the B1A, because of the B2, they had to combine it so that he could add on to the,
That tiny little building?
yes.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, that whole
okay.
B2 area is, I think the largest is 9/10 of an acre, and there's, everything else is a half or less.
I just printed that out so I could have it at my ready.
Mhm.
Our little zoning map.
It tells you what lot
Small area.
size
It
is.
is very small, yeah.
So maybe we should start there.
Yeah, we can start by looking at lot coverage if everybody wants to do a little bit of research on that.
So when you say you're looking at lot coverage, are you talking about combining lots, or?
Well, building driveway, how much of it you can
Footprints.
have, the footprint on the piece of property so that maybe a business would have an easier time going into those tiny little chopped up lots down there.
So do you make it lot coverage per zoning type? Is that what you're talking about?
We'd have to look into the different zonings.
So
Mhm.
each zone would have its
So the
own
B4,
lot
the
type?
B2, we'd have to look at
Lot
those and
coverage.
see.
And I'm thinking, we had said
B1
something, we had
and-
talked about, do we need as much
Do we
B4?
need-
Do we, should
Right.
it be combined with B3? Do we need all those different districts?
Yeah.
We should alleviate B2.
And do we need B1, B1A, B2, B3, B4?
I think B1A and B1 are gonna be tough to do anything with. We could probably look at the footprints and
But
stuff.
B2, village retail?
Yeah, we need
Do
to
we
do
even
something
have
with
any of that?
We really need to.
Well,
look
there's
at
stuff
that.
over there. I don't know if we have it. I mean, we have an area.
There's a doctor's office, a pizza place,
Auburn Inn.
Auburn Inn,
Good
a
story.
bait shop.
That's it.
Barber
That's it.
shop?
Jason Wine.
Jason Line on the other corner.
Is
Yeah.
the hair salon B2?
Cleveland Art,
Or is that too far down?
I think that's too far down.
Cernas, Cleveland Art.
Why won't a gas station build over there?
We had one potentially, but ODOT squashed his driveway. He wanted a
In and out.
in and out, a U driveway,
Mhm.
and they said, nope, a driveway. And he has not moved forward with his plan.
So now there's a
It's
for
for
sale
sale.
sign there.
Just as it was the previous, who was that? Was it Sidley? Was the previous,
Yeah.
No, that
potential, who was that? Before Ken Abba?
I think the gas station is the second or third business that has come there, and
Definitely the
ODOT
second.
squished
Yeah,
what they wanted.
yeah.
Well,
At least-
that's-
So with all the lot clearing on the other side of the highway there, what's,
That dude just cleared his trees. That didn't,
Wanted
wasn't
some
for
water,
a
huh?
purpose, as far as I know, he just had somebody come in and wipe out all the trees.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think he did it for a reason.
Oh, yes, he did. There was a profit motive there. They harvested the tree.
Yeah, he just wiped out all the trees.
Right.
Yeah,
And for the
Right.
Not
next
'cause he was
couple of
gonna
years,
build
someone just
anything.
floated across Route
No, he
44.
was just harvesting, right.
yeah, he just wiped out all the trees.
And that's unfortunate with that area, that's all
Right.
being bought up by
Yeah, and it looks awful.
6 dogs.
Well, and the erosion, holy smoke,
Yeah, it looks awful.
terrible damage.
All right,
Well,
well,
that-
I guess that's a good leaping off point. The only other thing I will add, you guys, is if we can think about it, I did contact the ZBA, and I invited him to, the chairman, Brian, to come to our meeting or for me to go to his meeting, so that we could kind of see what issues are, they're coming up against over and over and over. Do they have things that are smacking them in the face, you know, that we should be looking at, or vice versa? And he said he would be more than happy to come to one of our meetings if we could just give him a day. And he also invited me to go to theirs, and if I wanted to sit in at theirs, you know, they would then be able to, or any of us, if we wanted to go to one of theirs. then
I'd
we
like
could
to
ask
go
them
to one of
questions.
theirs when it is an issue, they're giving conditional uses on something we have in our zoning, and they're
Mhm.
adding on to it.
And
I
we'll
think
find
that's
out
what
why.
That's what we need to concentrate on that respect.
Should I invite him for, just tell him any random, I told him I'd get back to him with a good day.
Well, I mean, next time
we'll have a little bit of business prior, but we're gonna get back into
To this,
and
Yeah.
it's probably a great thing for him to say, okay, well, you know, you're putting things here, how
Okay.
do you guys accept that? I think
Okay.
this is a good
Yeah,
topic.
it
to
would be a
in.
good time.
okay, well then I'll email
If
him,
he can make it,
yeah. He was very friendly, so
Mhm.
I'll email him and tell him we would,
And then let me know.
okay. Okey dokey. Okay,
Any more comments from the public?
anybody want to make any other?
Thank you.
Thank you, this was a meaningful meeting, and the interaction with the public, I think, is very valuable.
Glad to see you, and it's nice to hear, you know,
It's nice to have some.
it is nice to have, you know, because we're all residents too, but, you know,
Yeah.
we're only sixth opinions, so it's nice to
Auburn
hear.
wasn't here, so we had to show up for it.
Motion.
It's nice to, oh, yes, motion to adjourn, gentlemen?
Second.